Inside Scoop. All right.
Yes, sir. We
Mic
are
check,
live.
mic check.
We're live.
Yeah,
Okay.
mic check. We sound good. We are ready to go. And let's get this episode rolling, man. Jeremy, thank you very much for taking the time.
Likewise.
To stop by, man. This is an exciting podcast. It was last minute, and I was like, let's do it. So we're glad to
Shout
have
out
you
to
on.
Casey.
Yes.
Yep.
Casey, if you want to do the introduction, man, and we can go from there, man.
So, VeeFriends. I got in VeeFriends last May. It's built a community. The community is, we're on Twitter AMAs all the time. Shout out Jeremy for hosting them. I was on the Twitter AMA and I hear he's flying in for a wedding. And I'm like, oh, man, I got to reach out. And Jeremy puts out all the alpha. If you know VeeFriends, you know Jeremy, he's putting out the alpha. So you're tuning in all the time. And I was like, he's going to be in OKC. I got to see if he's available for like breakfast. And it was like, hey, I could use a ride from the airport. Just pick him up from the airport, start to talk. Where are we from? Then it's like, hey, I have this platform, me and Darwin, do this podcast. Let's talk about VeeFriends. Let's talk about the community. Let's talk about how you got there. And so I can't wait. I'm excited about this podcast. I'm excited for you to tell us.
This guy, man, he's a genius when it comes to the network, man. I love it. You know?
Yeah. And like, he picked me up from the airport. We spent like half my trip together. He also like squeezed me in for a haircut. Shout out to Supreme
Barbershop.
Barber.
Took care of the boy
really
for the
good.
wedding.
Yeah, who bless you up? Was it AD?
AD.
Shout out to my boy AD, man. Yes. So, man, just tell the people what you got going on, what you do, and then you can just go from there, man. Let's get nerdy with it.
Let's get nerdy with it. This world is so interesting because even as you were saying, I was like, what is alpha to somebody who isn't in the NFT space?
True.
Which is like, alpha is a word that basically means kind of like insider knowledge. It's like if you have the scoop on something that might give you an advantage, it's usually called alpha. But now we use it for anything, like what's the news, could be alpha or whatever. But I don't even know where to start.
But
I actually told
you've
Casey.
taken that, You've taken that leap to be the fan paid, be VeeFriends. VeeFriends launched, and I felt like you were the first person to say, okay, I'm gonna circulate a channel that circulates all this information so everyone in the community can get it.
Yes.
Is that what gave you that, like?
I mean, so in VeeFriends, there's really like three stories here because there's the story of Gary Vee. You know Gary Vee.
Yes.
So for people who don't know Gary Vee, like super quick crash course, his family is from the former Soviet Union. He was born in Belarus. He and like a handful of his family members were lucky enough to get out through Poland. They moved to Queens. They have this very much like almost romantic immigrant life, but obviously it's romantic in the movies. It's like really hard, right? Like small apartment, 7 family members. Dad works in a liquor store for years until he's like in his teenage years where finally his dad buys the liquor store he works at. And in that time, Gary is just kind of gifted with entrepreneurial skills. He tells stories, right? So like he tells stories of like going to people's houses and pulling their flowers and selling it back to them at their door.
Right.
Then he had not just one lemonade stand, but like a franchise lemonade stands. He would get his like 5 best friends from elementary school to man his lemonade stands while he would ride around on his like big wheel and sit on the corner and watch as people were going through intersections where their eyes went. Like, was it better?
Entrepreneur.
Was it better to put the poster on that tree or that like telephone pole or whatever? Then that led into collectible cards. So he started like, I don't know. He talks about it like age 12, making $20,000 at these mall shows, selling cards and like walking the whole whatever, seeing everybody's table and being like, okay, I'm stealing that. You're doing that wrong. I'm going to do this right. I'm going to price all my shit a little bit lower.
Right.
And then he gets pulled into the liquor store and makes like $2 an hour bagging ice. And he falls in love with collecting wine, really just cramming in the whole story. He starts the first, or I guess the second online wine business and rebrands his dad's liquor store as Wine Library. So it was early in like every kind of Web2 marketing. Like he bought Google AdWords the day it came out and paid 8 cents a word for the
head.
Ahead. That's the crazy part. He's just ahead.
Yeah, and that's like what he's characterized for is like, I mean, people see him as like this big salesman, marketer, and he is that, but he also like sees the trends as they're arriving. And so like that had led him to AdWords, to like go heavy on email marketing while it still mattered. invest in Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, eventually Uber, eventually like Musically.
So were you like me in the sense that you found him online? I found him just his social media presence, and I listened to him at first, and I was like, I vibe with that. Like I have synergy with what he's saying, this and all these traits. And I had never really, besides his book, Crush It, I had never really seen him push to sell anything, and I never went to buy it. So when he did the NFT, I don't know if it was like you, I believed in him already just by following the free content.
It was a little bit of that. So yeah, he gets in after all that investing, he gets into digital marketing like Facebook, Instagram, was like shouting about Snapchat and TikTok a couple of years before they blow up. And that's like around when I found him in 2015. And I was like 23 or 24. And I had a good heart, but I was kind of full of shit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I went to a drama school. I worked really hard. I started my own company with my friends. I was like doing the thing, but to make money, I was like, oh, I don't know, just like lost at sea. You kind of make pennies as you're building, and so I found this MLM. I got pulled into an MLM called ACN, selling home services, and I don't know how much you know about an MLM, but like the recruiting tactics are not so pure, and I was starting to feel that.
Is that a pyramid scheme?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we all been there.
And there are plenty of them out there that are like sustainable, but most people who are in them, they just want the products for cheaper. And they make a lot of promises, and they just use a lot of tactics to make me feel uncomfortable. And so I was starting to realize that, and I found Gary Vee's. The first video I saw from him was him speaking to a class at USC about entrepreneurship. And he said, at the moment you don't believe 100% fully in what you're selling, you've already lost. And I was like,
huge.
I was like, I got to get out of this thing. And then he starts talking about self-awareness and empathy as like business skills. And that meant a lot to me because as an actor, I became a clown. And I know that sounds kind of out of left field. It is a little bit like nonverbal communication, physical acting, mask performance, puppetry. Like these are the things I did for the 8 years before the pandemic. And then obviously like my industry completely shut down, and the stuff I was doing behind the scenes, so because I worked on stage and backstage.
And this is all in New York, right? That's where you...
It was actually in California.
California?
I moved to New York November before the pandemic.
Okay.
And I started doing home repairs to pay the bills. So like fixing doorknobs, mounting TVs, moving jobs, stuff like that. And then, so after like, August, after the initial isolation, that's where I was able to like get work. And a few months later, in May of 2021, Gary announces this project, VeeFriends. So like the same way he saw where things were going with digital marketing, he saw NFTs. And NFTs were a lot of hype at that time because people had already sold his $69 million everydays. And
CryptoPunks was selling.
CryptoPunks were going up. I had no idea what anything was, but I was a little bit into crypto. I had been like dollar cost averaging, like buying a little bit incrementally.
Ethereum. Right.
Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Cardano. Thank God I bought Cardano, because otherwise I would have never been able to afford a VeeFriend.
You hit that spike, that initial spike to like...
Yeah, I mean, I bought it at like 30 cents.
Oh, okay.
So I've been up on that. I don't have it anymore because now I rolled it all into...
the earnings you invested into
VeeFriends. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I'm glad we're telling this story because there's so many like different ways to tell it. But like the reason I am where I am right now is because when VeeFriends launched, well, two reasons. I was pretty depressed in April. My jobs were slowing down. I had to get a restaurant job to pay the bills, and like theater was just like a big question mark. Like it just didn't exist. And you're isolated for a year and a half, it was a year at that point, but it starts to get like
overwhelming,
really heavy. And so, so I'm getting into crypto to like almost gambling in a way. I was starting to trading. I was like losing some money. I was like not really sure where I was at, and losing money doesn't help with your happiness for sure. So yeah, VeeFriends comes out, and Gary originally said it would be 1 Ethereum, and I had that. And my friend who like brought it to my attention, because I wasn't really watching him at that time, he had half an Ethereum. I had 1.5. So we like put our money together. Me and actually a third friend, we had 4 together. And we pooled it all because for a month before, I don't know if you were following all this, but he was like 0.5 to 1 ETH. Like that's what you need. But he was being very secretive about what it was exactly and how much it would cost. And it turns out it's a reverse Dutch auction. So like in an auction where highest bidder wins, Dutch auction is reversed. It starts high and then you can buy it as it goes down. So the Dutch auction started at 3 ETH, and he started to say you need 3 ETH. At the time, that's like almost $12,000, and we were freaking out. So on the day it was announced, I wasn't sure I'd be able to get one, or at least the 3 of us would split one. But there was one token that was application only. It was a scholarship, mentorship with Gary Vee, called the Sorcerer Scholarship, and that was why. So like I was ready for the drop on May 5th. And I was sitting at my computer and I was reading like admission tokens, V conference. Every one of these NFTs is a ticket to Gary's conference for the next 3 years. That was a cool value offer. Then there's a lot of like niche things. Like he's got the FaceTime Fly,
which we use for the podcast.
Right. So like 5 minutes for 2 years. There's like the Podcast Panther. If you have the Podcast Panther.
That one went for like 10 ETH though.
10 ETH. So what does that give you access to?
That gives you Gary on your podcast for 2 years.
But he comes personally. We go over there to him. How to?
Yeah, both. Either way.
Either way.
Yeah. I think most people have gone to him.
But I think the Podcast Panther just sold for 70 Ethereum, something like that.
70?
No, or 120. 120. I saw that. There's a lot of weird access ones. And ones we haven't seen yet. Like there's Gone Fishing Fish, where you just get 3 hours fishing with him.
Gary.
Shit.
There's the courtside.
How much is that going for?
I don't know. At the auction, it probably sold. It hasn't resold. The guy who got it probably got it for like
I think that's valuable.
15 or 20 ETH.
15 to 20.
But you have to like at the time that was like $80,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
man.
ETH was at all-time high.
ETH was an all-time high when VeeFriends launched, which is kind of crazy.
Man, that to me it's interesting because these are pretty much access to Gary Vee, right? All these different cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a brunch Ladybug, like Ladybug brunch.
Yeah, they're like meal tokens where you get to sit down and eat with Gary Vee and the other holders.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So what do you think Gary finds time to fit all that in his schedule? You know, you got all these cards that
and
gives
he's
you
running
access
all
to
these
him,
businesses.
and he's running all these businesses. So you would think like, how does he find time, right?
Well, he says he takes a lot of it out of his speaking. He's like not doing the keynotes that he was doing. He's like rolling that time into this. So like when they launched it, there are 3 things that they talked about. Were like, number one, creating a blueprint for other celebrities,
right,
and other people with influence, because there's a lot of people that can come into the space and be like, I've got 100 million followers, buy my shit. I walk out with $10 million or whatever, and they don't know how to build a project or build a brand that's actually sustainable for the people on the other side. So a blueprint, but then also like a tangible value offer in the conference. But then also this third piece of like, for anybody making an NFT, access, this like unscalable, like providing time for your community is going to be like the thing that proliferates NFTs. Like imagine if this podcast gets like 1 million downloads a month, like there's going to be people who want to talk to you guys. And you know, and people do that now without NFTs, and NFTs can make it more efficient and gives you tools because it's all on a decentralized ledger. That's what the blockchain is. It's like a tech that underlies all of this. And so because of that, it's a clear and transparent record that you can have. It's not necessarily tied to people's identities, but you have their wallets. So.
And one thing I liked about Gary is like, you know, at the time Web3 was known for access. I think Mark Cuban did something where he did an email. He allowed you to email him, and then he responded a personal message. But Gary gave the conference, he kind of gave this 3-year window of what value was for the token, with the same goal to build out the IP and continue to innovate with the Web3 through the 3 years. So you kind of like got into the project not really knowing what was next. You just knew what you got initially, but like I think that was everyone's like suspense, is like, how is he going to build out this IP? What else is he going to add? What other values is he going to add?
That's why right now is a cool time to be recording this podcast, because like I am the unofficial historian of VeeFriends now. because like since May 5th, and I was like, the reason I went heavy on content is because I didn't know I could afford a token. I assumed this application would be content. So it's like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok every day since May 5th. TikTok fell off, but like Instagram and Twitter, like I've been there. So like I've literally seen everything happen, and we really didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
When you say like I'm gonna build an IP like Disney, nobody I still can't really imagine that. But now we're starting to get a better idea because there's the second series coming out soon. And it's an interesting time. I was telling Casey, like this podcast should just be called Everything I Know About VeeFriends. And we just like put out all the best guesses.
Yeah.
Because it's right in the pocket where we're about to get a lot of answers, or we think.
Yeah.
But like to your point, VeeFriends, Gary drew them himself, which is kind of romantic. Like that's cool of him. He could have easily hired an artist to do it, but he wanted his own provenance, his own like
he sat
origin.
there at his desk and drew every character,
and they're all
and like he got flanked for the art. Like artists in Web3 at the time were like, this art is whack. Like,
it's not impressive,
but it gives you just a unique touch to it. Like it's from him.
It's literally his design, his hand.
Exactly. It's not like you said he could have hired an artist, but I think that makes it even more special because he made it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And it's different. It's not like this, crazy, well put together thing. It's just something that was on the fly, and there it is.
Right.
So I'm a fan of it.
And like we were talking about the more exclusive access tokens, but most of the characters are admission. Like it's just the NFT. There's a few kinds of rarity, and they get you into the conference. But for Gary, it's the first ever collectible of a 45-year plus intellectual property. So anything good that happens to those characters, and all the characters are I guess human attributes mostly. They're like stuff that he wants more people to incorporate into their lives. It's like empathy elephant, patient panda, tenacious termite. Like any positive attribute you can think of is more or less in there. So there's 268 of these characters. And so you can imagine, like, honestly, not all of them will be able to be truly built out in his lifetime, but the conference gives him 3 years to establish the IP and, ideally maintain the value of what they are now after the tangible value of the conference is gone. That's like the big variable, and everybody wants to like play games about timing the market because they've done really well.
Yeah.
Like Gary's been like a huge influence in the space. Like, people bought these tokens for $2,000 to $4,000, and now they're $40,000 to $100,000, depending on what you hold.
I mean, what are some of the biggest gaps? There was somebody that bought theirs for 0.5 ETH and then ended up selling the like ape for 80 ETH.
Yeah.
Like
so there's a few characters
that have
because of like crypto culture and because of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is now the most successful NFT project really of all time. Sorry, CryptoPunks.
Bored Ape just bought CryptoPunks. If you don't know,
they did.
They bought Larva Labs, so now CryptoPunks is owned by Bored Ape.
So they're just building that empire. Like that's crazy.
The Bored Ape Yacht Club like really did a lot of things right, and they launched at a time before, unlike now, where there's a lot of sort of like spam projects, like people who are like faking the funk. Like they actually had a pretty original idea. They gave homage to the CryptoPunks, which are like one of the first generative projects. Used some of the attributes there, like the orange beanie and the 3D glasses and things like this. That are traits, but then they gave the commercial rights, the property rights of each ape to the holder. Mm-hmm. So if I have a Bored Ape, which I don't, I can go and make like a clothing brand or sneakers, or I can put it on a backpack. I can sell it. And it's mine. If I want to like, if you wanted to associate an ape with your podcast, or like there's a club in Miami that bought an ape for that reason. Arizona Tea has an ape that they're using with their marketing.
So you can brand it.
So you can use it
beyond an NFT.
Yeah. And there's
sell merch.
There's a lot of promise there. Like even now when they're worth like $250,000, which is wild. They were originally purchased for like $250. They literally did a 1,000x, and they're pretty much maintaining that value. There are people who are like, yeah, that's a big deal, but think about how much I could make if I actually utilize the opportunity here.
Because it seems like everybody now is doing just anything, right? They'll come up with a sheep the excited sheep, or you know, like they're just coming out with these kind of like
adjective sheep location or adjective animal location.
Yeah, so they're trying to just kind of replicate that Bored Ape kind of style, and it's like, where's the value?
Where's the innovation?
Where's the innovation? You know,
That's what I love about Gary. Like, he's not cookie cutter. He's not doing tokenomics right now. He's just innovating in his own way. I would say Jeremy would know, but what are you most excited about? You know, we've got series 2, we've got book games. Like, what's gotten you like really excited right now?
Dude, I'm excited for the storytelling. Like that's the whole reason I saw and could show up to VeeFriends every day in the beginning. Like, I don't know if you know the Commedia dell'arte. This is like now another niche thing. But you know, like archetypes, you know, character types. Like, you know, there's like the villain and the hero, the lovers. Yeah. Like most of those archetypes come from this Italian tradition called commedia, where actors would wear masks and perform on the street and improvise stories and say really dirty jokes. Like that's kind of what we know about it. So like character types like the greedy Jew like come from commedia and even earlier if you want to get really historical. But like the idea of the bravo, the person who like comes in for one like glorious scene and then dies, or the lovers. I studied this, and I studied how these archetypes like can sort of iterate on each other. Like when the greedy miser comes in with the hungry servant, like their relationship isn't static, right? It depends on the context. It depends on like who is the miser in love with, or who is this like what is the servant hungry for? Or maybe like what was the mistake? And like obviously there's a lot of problematics. This is from the Renaissance, but I saw that. It's like you can put the empathy elephant in with the cynical cat, and that story can play out 100 different ways. So we know that they're about to sign a children's book deal, and from like the earliest days, Gary has said the accountable ant is like that's the one he wants for the children's book first. So that hasn't been announced yet, but I'm pretty sure it's a big player. And they revealed the accountable ant evolving in the new series 2 art. So series 1 is like elementary drawings. They're like, people want to call them doodles. They're really like, people use the word doodles to be diminutive. They're sketches, you know. They're like, they're marker. And then over time he starts using more colors, he gets a little better. But, you know, if you took a couple art classes, you could draw in that style.
And now series 2
is like animation ready. It's like fully built out. It's like a team of artists have like totally leveled it up. So instead of in series 1 where you have rarity by background, all the artwork is the same within each character, but like white is common, brown is rare, orange very rare, green is epic, and then there's a few, you know, you have the hollows and like card packs. He's got like 5 types of hollows. He's got lava, gold, hollow, bubblegum, and
diamond. And then all of a sudden, and then you got the separate access tokens, which is 300, right?
300 characters. No, 33 characters.
33 characters, but
300 tokens.
300 access tokens. So then you got the specs, the access, then you got the cores and the very rares that he's talking about.
So series 2 is a little different. Series 2 is all one-of-one art. Like there's no repeats. Like I have a core Heart Trooper. There are 19 other of them that are exactly the same except for the number. But in series 2, everything's one-of-one, and the way they do that is between the character, the pose, like are they in a competing pose? Are they in a classic pose? We don't know what they all are yet. And then the setting. So this is really cool. This is why I'm excited about series 2 and stories, because like already, like you put the Heart Trooper is kind of more of an enigma. Like you put a curious crane in a competing pose on Adversity Island story. Like already there's a relationship, right?
Right.
And I just know there's a lot of thought put into this, and I'm excited to see
how it plays out.
How it plays out. It's going to take a long time, but like they're laying the groundwork for that.
So if let's say Darwin, like if I know nothing about VeeFriends, but now you've got me interested in the project.
Oh gosh.
You know, what do I do? What do you recommend I do? If I'm just coming across Twitter, I run into this community, but I want to get involved, but I see book games, I see a new series coming out, I see that series 1 has already crushed it. What do I do? What's your advice?
My advice is take it slow. Just like if you're curious about NFTs and you don't know anything about crypto, you should learn a little bit about crypto first. Like the best advice is get educated and take it slow, because like the fact that we're having this conversation is novel. Like there aren't many podcasts right now that are talking about NFTs because there aren't many people right now that can talk about NFTs, let alone collect them.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the numbers on hand, but it's like 1% of 1% of people. So it's a very, very niche thing. If you're interested in it, you're very early to this process, and there's a lot of danger in the space because it's so early. It's also unregulated, and so there's scammers like literally around every corner.
Yeah.
If you're on Twitter or you're on Discord, which are the platforms you'll go to learn about new projects, you will inevitably run into people with bad intentions. Like if you get a DM that shows you some random artwork and it says, Gary V supports his project, predicts a 10 ETH floor. That's not true. That's a scam. Anything that tells you this is going to make you money, probably
Quick money,
best
yeah.
to just turn around. Like it's happening from time to time with projects, either because they have established leaders, like people who have done stuff in the real world, not just influencers, but like business people, like, or anybody who's done, like provably done something and is willing to put their reputation on something. People are more willing to invest in it because they're like, well, at least if you disappear, I know who like stabbed me in the back. You know, you're not just like an anonymous person on the internet. Or they have like a ton of hype. And hype is sort of like a double-edged sword in the space because it like drives a lot of attention, drives a lot of volume. But like we have a term in the space called bag holders, which is like, it's kind of going back to the pyramid scheme, right? It's like there's always somebody at the bottom at the bottom of the pyramid who doesn't have like a build out, whatever. With like for a project that doesn't have a future, there's always going to be a bag holder. It's like I buy the bag for $10, I sell it to you for 20, hold the bag, I've got my $20, right? And that can happen. It happens a lot. And so like back to your question, like it's better to just watch a project life cycle a couple of times to get familiar with like launch, making promises, secondary market hype, then like what happens after the hype? What do the teams do? And if a team like continues to build, it might be worth spending a little more money to get into that project, even though you could have gotten in earlier because you have more certainty versus like gambling with NFTs. And like for VeeFriends, there's really just 3 entry points, right? If you have $50,000, not financial advice, like a Series 1 token is pretty crazy because right now, if you get a Series 1 token, but over the next 3 years, you get 4 free NFTs. You get a free Series 2 and you get a ticket to VCon. So they've made the ticket to VCon its own NFT, and Gary is like, Gary is suggesting we're all underestimating him again. He's probably right. He's been right about
every time.
It's been, the guy bats like 800.
Yeah.
Like he knows what he's up to, right? And he thinks that like the art that he's set up for the VCon tickets is going to make the NFT collectible even after the conference because it's for getting you into the conference, but it's an NFT. So it's an asset. You hold it, you own it. You can do with it whatever you want. And that's pretty powerful. So he even mentioned in the Discord yesterday that he wants an average price of 3.5
for all 4. That takes you to 14, 15 ETH, which is what the floor is today.
It makes the VeeFriends basically
like Jeremy
free.
said, if you have the money and you can get into Series 1 today and you get those 4 free NFTs throughout the course of the conferences.
And you could be patient.
And those 3 NFTs sell for an average price of 3.5 Ethereum. Well, then you got a free VeeFriend if you were just patient. That's how much value he's like, I'm basically, if I give you these 4 for free by owning the one and they sell for 3.5, you just bought yours for free.
Maybe. There's a lot of volatility in the space. You never know.
But you have a guy like Gary that's accomplished X amount, so much, and you have him working on this project every day, and you see it on his media. You see him say it like, "I'm all in on VeeFriends. I'm all in on V1. Everything I'm doing is for the community." Like, and just knowing that your investment is in some guy like that, and he's working on it, so that's what made me feel comfortable.
Yeah. And then his other two collections, Book Games, is about $1,000 right now each.
Talk about Book Games. What is Book Games?
Wait. Let's check in with Darwin first, because we just put a lot on you.
I'm absorbing everything, man.
You're a sponge.
I'm a sponge because, like, when I found out we were gonna do this podcast, I'm like, perfect, because, like, my mission here is to keep up with this podcast, put the content out, and I was like, Casey, your mission is to be on Twitter, checking out everything. The NFT space, the creative space, entrepreneurship. So it's a good balance. So it's like, I'm just absorbing it.
And we knew we were going to go to VCon together.
Yes.
To really
I can't
follow
wait.
the space.
Oh, yeah.
So we are, we're all in. And I love it because it's one of those where it's like, I'm taking it, like you said, slow, learning, and then let's go.
You know what? Pivot real quick. I told Casey something yesterday that everyone should hear. And that is like Casey's been in the space since May. Casey's watched enough projects to launch his own project. You're learning, even slow. Like, it's not that hard to launch a project. It's hard to maintain a project. And something I said to him, which I think is going to play out, is that in 3 to 5 years, when like it's a lot more established, it's much more common for people simply to have these crypto wallets. And because right now, when you get in, it's like, how do I buy crypto? How do I transfer it to my own personal wallet that's not hosted by Robinhood or Coinbase or whoever else, but it's actually mine? You know, I have the keys to it. What's the security needed for all of that stuff? Like the 101. In 3 years, that 101 will be much more broadly available, and there will be a new round of people who are getting introduced to the NFTs for the first time. And just like in our generation, in our class, if you will, people dive into a project. They like see the prosperity, they see the possibility. Maybe they have really good intentions and a good idea, but maybe they don't have the experience. And so they can fizzle out. And it's going to be, and thinking in this 3 to 5 year time period, there's going to be a new round of those people who are like, oh my God, this is so exciting, amazing. Maybe it's a new bull run. There's all these things going on. And they like dive into a project and they might do well, but it's going to be the people like us who have been watching for 3 to 5 years, who have been strategizing.
And what fails, what works for projects.
That launch a project then that like have all of that experience and that network to make sure that your project succeeds. Because like the last thing you want to do right now is ruin your reputation with an NFT project that you can't support, you know, or sustain. It's like, it's one thing if like your project isn't more valuable than what people bought it for. That's one piece of the puzzle, which everybody wants and to a large degree expects, but it's out of the creator's control. But like, if you can't like sustain, provide value, like build your community, whatever that means to your community, like value can mean 100 things to 100 people, right? Then like you will ruin your reputation and it'll be hard to come back from that. So like, it's awesome that you're taking it slow.
Yeah, because in this space, especially when it's creative, you know, and you're providing so much value by giving information, free information like this podcast, that's huge. Just make sure when you get into a project that you provide full value, you're doing your research, and you're giving back to the people that trust you, that are invested in you. It's like the whole Gary Vee thing. You did it blindly because you're like, he's provided so much value within the years that
this has got to be something.
This has got to be something.
Yeah,
this has got to be, you know, of value.
Absolutely.
That's where we want to go with that.
I'm sure people see me talking about Gary Vee stuff. Like I've kind of become a megaphone for the things that VeeFriends or Gary Vee says. And, you know, I'm negotiating that as I go. But people probably see me and they're like, this dude's a fanatic. This dude is just like an acolyte for Gary Vee. But honestly, I wasn't watching Gary Vee before he launched his project. The reason that I love Gary Vee so much is because he already changed my life before VeeFriends. And like just the very brief version of that story is like, he talks about regret a lot. And he talks about volunteering at old folks' homes to like see what regret looks like and like connect with how how you just get one chance. You know,
like their journeys and talking to the old people that have gone through things. And
yeah, he says like go to an old folks home and just like ask them about their lives, and 9 out of 10 people will say, "I wish." Like
I would have done this or done that.
they didn't try to start that business. This is the same reason why he says that people can like fuck off college and fuck off high school, not because school is bad, but because you can go back to school.
right.
You won't have that moment when you're 19 or 21 or 25 and you have a spark of excitement to go back. And like that's why he says you're young at 40, because like you can raise a family and then go back to that thing that like really drives you. So for me, that was spending time with my grandfather, because he lives in Michigan and my grandmother passed away, and I was like totally devastated. And like, and because I hadn't seen her in a few years, and like the year goes by and I'm just like grinding on theater shows, which I loved, but like I would have like a week to 3 weeks at most between shows. And it just hit me at one point, like he put out a piece of content like that. I had heard the message before, but it landed on me that time, and I finished my contract, canceled the next, and I booked a one-way flight to Michigan. And I spent 3 weeks with my grandfather to do nothing. Like literally my grandfather was asking me like again and again. He's like, "Why are you here?" Like there's nothing to do. And I'm just cooking breakfast with him and like shooting the shit with him at night. And like it's just one of my proudest memories. And he like it meant so much to him, but he didn't realize that like I wasn't, like I can't explain it. Like
It was more for self-growth. It was Gary V's words telling you, like, ask some older people was that what it was?
it was gratitude. Like I didn't really know much about him. Like it was like Christmases and Thanksgiving that I really got to know him. And it was super spontaneous and it felt necessary. And he was also like 93 and he passed away at the end of that year.
Wow.
And so like, even more so after he died, I was like, holy shit.
Wow.
Like that's the thing that I'm like, I can't wait to tell Gary, like one day.
Yeah.
Because like
He encouraged that moment, kind of.
like he just gave me he's given me so many perspectives that I wouldn't have otherwise have. But like I've got memories from those weeks, and like I know my family in a way I never would have. And I would have like massive regret had I not. So I don't know how we got onto that.
No, but
That's huge. That's huge. I think it's the whole, don't live life without regrets. Do what you want, because
As best as you can.
As best as you can, yeah. Because that's huge, man. I think that's very valuable.
And like when Gary gives free value like that, yes, I'm willing to spend a significant portion of my savings into something he says is going to be a good investment.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And he was right.
Yeah.
So for somebody that's new like me, for example, and I go to your Instagram page where I see you put a lot of content out.
Yeah.
It's want to be a V friend.
Yeah, it's wanna be like Spice Girls.
Okay.
Wanna be a V friend.
Okay, so what can people expect if they're new and you happen to just see your page on Instagram? What kind of content are we looking at?
Usually it's me on a live stream, just like talking with folks, answering questions. I've been trying to get better at the micro stuff, but it's happening more on Twitter right now, where I'll do like hour to 3 hour long Twitter spaces, which is like a drop in audio, like Clubhouse. And we just talk about all the things. Cause basically like we're just sort of hanging on Gary's words before the reveal. Like we want to get ahead of it. We want to know where to go. And there's some strategy elements right now so like if coming back to book games, but yeah, I mean the content is just like,
And you're doing it
You
daily.
can just ask me questions.
Because you're basically keeping up with Gary's moves every day.
Yeah.
He's bringing the community together to talk about how these moves, talk about if you're invested in book games, how you secure your Series 2 spots for good characters. So it's more just like, I feel like Jeremy does a great job of keeping the community together. And just a side note, like yesterday, what I really liked about getting him and picking him up and I think us doing that with our own community just brings so much more value long-term to the entire community. Because like we're talking like, man, you got a V friend in every city. And if we have this little V fam map, And now I'm like in Toronto.
And you can link up.
You can link up, man.
man,
That's what Gary intended this to be.
A community. Unity.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. You already probably know this, but you said you fell off on TikTok. I think that should be also a big outlet for you.
Bro.
Because you like to do these live streams, right?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about TikTok, I used to do a lot of lives, but it's that For You page that you can constantly see people joining. People that aren't even following you, joining.
Yes.
And that's a big way for you. And all you have to do is, I think, you have to reach 1,000 followers is to be able to go live on TikTok. And you get that.
Okay, I can do that.
That could be a mission, and we can make it happen. You know,
I've got that resistance. I can feel it in my body because I don't know how to use the editor or everything. I'm slow, and so it hangs me up. But, but you just got to push through it.
And I feel like just the one-on-one talk. You know, just putting the camera up, and first 5 seconds are very important. So as long as you're able to get that hook, get the viewer in, I think that's valuable, because once you hit that 1,000 where you can go live, I think that's going to provide a lot of value, because I was watching one of your live streams, and it's good information. So I think people on TikTok are constantly looking for content to consume, and that For You page is a good outlet to get new people in front of. Like, that algorithm is like, okay, this person likes NFTs, this person likes VeeFriends or a Gary Vee fan, then boom, they'll put your content out there for those people that like that kind of stuff.
Gary's thing right now, Gary's been talking about TikTok for 2 years as like
way before it was a thing.
The spot. And he's still today is giving people advice 4 TikToks a day.
Yeah,
like,
4 meaningful TikToks a day will change your...
It doesn't matter what you want to achieve. If you make 4 TikToks a day about it, you'll get there a hell of a lot faster, which is wild.
Yes.
And I don't make a single one.
So find that way, man, because the content's there. You're putting it out there, so might as well use that other outlet that provides more exposure. I think TikTok. That's why TikTok is because that For You page is that just you have the possibility to be seen by thousands, if not millions, of people. So
Yes,
that's huge.
Yes.
So. Yeah, man. So
I'm committing right now. I'm gonna just start with 1 a day. I can do 1 a day.
Yeah, I think that's
we'll get started.
Yeah, exactly. I think some people are they hold back on like, oh, if this doesn't go viral, I'm gonna lose my shit. But it's just like, put it out there and just wait for your moment. That's it. Provide value, and that's it. Your moment will come.
And be ready, right?
And be ready, exactly.
Because that's the other thing is, like, if you hit. You'll hit harder if you have more stuff for people to like
you have
dig
a catalog
into, and you're like, oh, this guy's been doing shit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and I think the creator economy, I'm a big fan of that as well, and that's what I like to study.
Yeah,
is just seeing like where this whole creator thing, and then I think there's gonna be somewhere where it's just like NFTs, metaverse, they all just boom come together.
Well, there's a lot of tools like, because it's on blockchain, this isn't entirely new, but it's just easier to drive royalties back to the original creator. Like, if you create an NFT within the code that creates your digital certificate that will be attached to whatever your art is, you have a smart contract. And in that smart contract, you can write a few different protocols. And a very simple one is royalties to the creator. You can do split royalties if you've got multiple creators. There's like a lot of options. So like when Gary Vee sells a VeeFriend, Gary sold all his VeeFriends in May and June. And actually, side note, they didn't sell out for like 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
So just for the record.
And that's why we thought they were going to sell early. That's why we didn't think we were going to get one.
I know. I bought mine day 1 before the floor because I was like, I'm not risking this.
Okay.
So now they sell on secondary market. Every time one sells, Gary gets 10% of the sale.
That's genius.
I don't know the figures, but I want to say there's been like close to 3,000 Ethereum traded, which means he's made 300 Ethereum, which today
at the average
is
price
like
of 25, let's say, of the whole time, maybe, or even an average price of 2,800.
It's a lot of money.
That's a lot.
10%
Like
of that.
book games alone, which is on a separate.
That's a 5.5% royalty, right?
Yeah, it's but like the volume traded on book games is like $50 million.
It's crazy. 5.5% of that is going straight to Gary's. Well, he's reinvesting. He's running a business. That's what people don't get. I mean, and he's reinvesting it.
Yes.
He's investing into VCon. VCon ain't cheap.
Yeah,
and then
stressful too. He said,
and he raised $50 million on the initial sale for V1, and Ethereum tanked. So I know he took there was a lot of losses where he took the ETH from the sale and didn't convert it to USD. It stayed ETH, and then ETH went down to 2,800 from 4K, which that costs. I mean,
So
50 million went to 30.
50% of loss.
Well, but not only does 50% of his purchase power go away, he gets taxed at the rate that he earned it. It's income. So he now gets taxed per sale at 4K, but
it's down.
it's down. It gets complicated. I mean, there is taxes on all these things, but that's a rabbit hole for another time.
Yeah. But
Let me ask you this. So if I'm looking to purchase VeeFriends 2, what do I get with that, and what's the floor price on it?
I'm glad you asked that because it's not as simple as you might think. So the answer to your question is it's $1,000.
Okay.
Which is pretty relatively fair. He's been promising that for months and months and months. And you get one NFT, one of one, character pose setting, and something else. We don't know what it is yet. My best guess is it's like a figurine or like a stuffed toy.
You might get an actual physical collectible when you buy this Series 2.
When are we expected to get this?
Mid-April.
Series 2 drops.
So here's what's interesting. Today's March 13th.
We're getting it?
Well, this is where it gets complicated.
Oh, yeah. You're definitely getting it.
We're getting it because if you own a V1, you automatically get one.
So I'm gonna try to get one.
You got to try and get one.
Okay.
Shout out to Ben Lumley who told us there's 45,000 Ethereum volume traded.
Wow.
I knew 3K sounded low. 45,000 Ethereum volume traded. That means he made 4.5 thousand. Add 2 zeros to that times 2 at minimum.
It's crazy.
We're talking it's a lot of money.
Okay. So me
3 zeros.
Yeah, I was one that when I linked up with Casey was already a V holder, and he kind of put me onto it because I've heard it from Gary V, but I'm all over the place, man. So
I feel you.
So it's like
timing is everything.
Yeah.
There's so many stories of people who were like, I was there, I was in the Discord, and I was too lazy to set up a MetaMask. I had a trouble with Coinbase. Shit happens.
My thing was more of because I remember when I messaged you remember when I told you bro, put me on to the NFTs and this was before we even linked up. We did the podcast and stuff, and you were like, join the Discord. I joined the Discord, but my time was just going on to searching for material for the podcast and keeping up with what's going on around the creator economy. And then when I linked up with Casey, he was already a Gary V holder, and I'm like, did it already happen? I'm like, damn, I missed out. So what are my chances to get the VeeFriends 2?
Okay.
What do I have to do to get it?
I'm going to make this very simple for everybody. Number 1, join the Discord.
Okay.
Get in the VeeFriends Discord. Multiple times a week, they have education sessions. So they will tell you how to set up a MetaMask, which is your wallet, how to buy Ethereum on Coinbase, get it into your wallet. You will buy an Ethereum. Ethereum today is $2,700. It will be under $1,000, $950 to $1,000. But
not Ethereum itself, but the price of the series.
The price in Ethereum.
And he's gonna price it in Ethereum that day of or day before.
Yeah, because
so is it better for me to buy an Ethereum or
that's the $1 million question.
It's tricky, right? Because it's volatile, right?
Yeah, you could buy $1,000 of ETH and it could be worth less than $1,000
by the time it comes out,
or it could be worth more. We just don't know. If I was a betting man, I would say not financial advice. Buy now. I do think we're going back above 3,000 soon.
Tough call, but yeah,
it's a tough call, and it could go both ways.
But back to it.
But I'm bullish.
Everyone trying to get Series 2.
Yeah.
So you could save the 1,000 theoretically, like Gary, and time it to where you have your $1,000 and just switch it to ETH the day before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're relatively in the right area.
There's so many nuances of this. I want to make it really simple, but okay, number 1, if you're gonna switch out your dollars to ETH the same day, you have to wire transfer it. Otherwise, you have a waiting period of 3 to 7 days. You don't want that.
Sheesh.
Number 2, the Ethereum isn't free.
It's that gas fees.
It's the gas fees. So if you don't know what a gas fee is, it's like a toll booth fee for using a bridge. It's the cost of maintaining the network with all of these different computer nodes that are keeping everything going. So you have to pay what we call the miners for transactions. And when there's not a lot of volume, that can be like $10 or $15 for a transaction. And it depends. If you're in a minting transaction, which is like creating a new NFT, you're looking at anywhere from like $50 to $150 right now in like low gas conditions. However, if everybody's making a transaction at the same time, everything gets confirmed in a block. That's why it's called the blockchain. It's like literally block by block by block, only one block at a time. And the reason it's one block at a time is because all of these servers around the world, they verify the same block at the same time, and they check each other's ledger history all the way back to the original Genesis block. If there's any discrepancy in any block history all the way back, then the transaction fails. And that's why the blockchain is trustless. We know that like the record is the record. It's very powerful. In a practical way, I can pay higher gas than you to get completed before you in the block, which means people who have the money will spend $500, $1,000, $5,000
for a one transaction
on the gas. Like people who want this Series 2 VeeFriend, we don't know how competitive it'll be, but like in the public sale, which there are like 10,000 and change, at least 10,000 available in the public sale, people will spend this $1,000 for each plus $1,000 for gas and hope, you know? But if somebody comes in and spends 10,000 on gas, they'll be completed first. So we don't know what the gas price in the public sale will be until that day because it's constantly fluctuating. So in order to mitigate that like fight between like the little guys and the big guys, basically, right? Like if you've got big bags, like you can win. And we see this happen with a lot of projects. They have a 12.5 pre-sale period. So you want to get in that if you can, but the only way to get into it is the 1.5 collection, the interim collection called Book Games. And I'm taking a breath because this is like, nobody really understands what Book Games is yet. And I don't have the simplest way to explain it, but like, did you see Gary's new book release, 12.5?
I have not.
He released a book. Instead of like releasing a book the way you do, he said, if you buy 12 of these books, I'll give you an NFT. There was a 24-hour period to do that. He sold 1.3 million books in 24 hours. The only other people to do that are the Obamas. So like, it was a big deal. 125,000 sets of 12 were created. So that's how many tokens there are. And these NFTs cost like $250 to $350. Now they're about $1,000. But it's not the simplest thing. There's like 13 attributes. There's different frame types. And Gary is this game master. He's like, it feels like he's got a master plan, but he's also making it up as he goes. And basically, for every single one you have, it's also a raffle ticket. And it gives you a 26% chance to get on the pre-sale
list.
On the pre-sale list. And then you still have to pay the $1,000. But your gas price is going to be like $100 or less.
And the more book game tokens you own, the chances of you getting on that list are more significant. I think after you get to 3 owned, it's like 70% chance you can get
5.
it. Or
5 is 77%
5
chance.
is 77% chance.
Yeah.
So,
which is a lot of money for people. I mean, that's $5,000.
Because book games, it's about $1,000 a book game right now.
But one thing I want to like highlight for people is like Book Games is not a raffle ticket for the Series 2 Friends list. Book Games is a whole ecosystem of its own that exists after the fact. So if you buy Book Games because it has this raffle function and you don't get the pre-sale, you can still go for public sale, and like this asset, it may or may not be worth what you paid for it in the short term, but in the long term, like you're making a good bet because number one, you're betting on Gary Vee, but number two, the game aspect, it's not like a video game, it's a strategy game. So Gary created a burning function. And when you burn an NFT, you destroy it from the blockchain.
So deflationary.
So the whole thing is deflationary. It started with 125,000. A couple days ago, there were 123,000. Yesterday and the day before, Gary offered VCon tickets. You could burn 5 book game tokens for a VCon ticket.
That'd be wood frames.
And I think like 250 of them were claimed. So people burn 1,200 tokens. You know, there's a limited supply. So we're already approaching 120,000. After Series 2, you don't have to burn for the pre-sale. But another element of this, Gary's got 15 new characters. The only way to get them is to burn book games. And he's just constantly going to goat people with value.
And he's playing this game for the rest of his life, for 40 plus years, right? So if you did buy, like Jeremy's saying, well, 10 years from now, there may be a situation where Gary says, well, if you have these or these, and now at this time, there may only be 50,000 tokens out there because there's been so many burn opportunities to that point.
Yes.
So you're buying some, and if they're worth 1,000 a token now at 124,000 tokens, they're sitting at 50,000 tokens, what are they going to be worth? You know, so you're making a good investment, and it's a possible access into Series 2 based on a friends list.
Yeah, the reason it gets tough is like if you only have $1,000 to invest.
Yeah,
I don't know that I would encourage someone to buy a book game token for the 26% chance. You might be better off just waiting for the secondary market and seeing what people are selling them for, because when people get them, they'll be unrevealed. We won't know what the character and background is. And people will sell them. Tons of people will sell them for like 1.5 what they paid, 2x what they paid. And sometimes paying a little more for a sure thing is better than like competing in the gas war. Because if you buy the public sale and there's no supply left, but you've already confirmed, you'll lose a little bit in gas. You'll lose like $30 or something. And then it's gone because your transaction failed. So yeah, that's tough. Like, and we're gonna get that question more and more of like, okay, I've only got enough for the mint. Should I buy a book game token? And probably not. Like 26% is 26%.
I would say yes, though. I'd still be like, hey, I'm trying to get in. Like, let's.
If you're comfortable for a long time,
right?
Like if you're not trying to like turn that 1,000 into 5,000 next month, and you can be a little patient. Yeah, book games is gonna be a good buy today, tomorrow, for next year. Like. There's just like, if you can handle the volatility, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's kind of like 3 tiers of projects where you can, Gary gives price points to get in. Obviously V1's, it's taken off, it's where it is, but book games is still a relatively area where you can get into NFTs, get exposure, see how he builds value in the ecosystem. I would say anybody trying to get in, learn book games first and try and maybe work that angle.
Yeah. When I got into crypto, I had a friend in 2017 who was like, "Oh, Jeremy, you gotta get a Coinbase. You gotta buy Bitcoin." He was like really excited.
Good friend.
He was a good friend. I wish I put in more, but I trusted him. So and I forgot about it. I really got in at the end of 2020, and I did a strategy called dollar cost averaging, which is basically just like a little bit every day, or a little bit every week, or a little every month. That way, if you have $1,000 to invest and you go in all at once, you might be timing the market well or not. And in the short term, that may or may not be a good decision. If you dollar cost average, you average out your entry and therefore reduce your risk. This is the theory. If you want to get into VeeFriends, I would dollar cost average into book games. Like, accumulate your ETH as you can. Each one is like 0.4 right now.
But we're at the hype.
But
right
we're at a high. It'll probably come down 30% after April 5th. April 5th is the day that, like, based on how many tokens you have, you get assigned pre-sale spots. So for every, I think it's like once you get 20 tokens, you're like confirmed at least one spot. But you could get up to 20. The likelihood is super, super low. But on average, you'll get like, 1 in 4. But yeah, accumulate your ETH, and like if you could pick up a book game token like once a month, like honestly, like that could be a retirement fund in 5 years.
Facts.
That
is good info. Facts. Yeah.
Yeah, dollar cost average into NFTs.
Okay. And to book games specifically would be I even want to start doing more of that and just collecting. But I told Jeremy I can't wait for after April, and we don't know how significant the dip's going to be because the community holds, man. There's diamond hand holders here.
Yeah.
But we think there's going to be like a book games winner where it drops 30%. And like we talk about all the time, that's 30% off,
Yeah.
And dollar cost averaging in, that's you're building a retirement fund, man. You're betting on Gary, and Gary's proven time and time again that he's willing to work 100% of his work day and dedicate this to these games.
This is an interesting moment because like we've all seen it so many cycles now. Like it's happened before that there's news. Like there's another phrase you might have heard, like buy the rumor, sell the news. So when you hear there's going to be, like this happened with the MeBits and CryptoPunk sale. There were totally people who knew about it before it was announced, and people were buying them ahead of its announcement and then sold to the people who were buying them because it was announced. It happened like when Cardano got listed on Coinbase. A bunch of people sold as soon as it was listed, and they sold it to new bag holders, right? But we've like seen this cycle, so it's kind of a repeatable truism in the space that like after a snapshot, things fall off. MetaHero just recently had a snapshot for their planets, dropped like 60%. You know, we don't know how much it'll drop, but like for sure volatility likely to the downside.
Yeah.
And so that's a good time to get in. You won't get a pre-spot for Series 2, but it's a good time to get into book games. Because I think, so there's two levels of support for book games. There's 0.25 quarter ETH because it's like kind of psychological, you know? So there's some support there, and we spent a lot of time trading back and forth between 0.2 to 0.25. But then below that, at 0.1 ETH, there's this floor. Because another element of book games is, I told you can burn them for special things. You can burn them for other NFTs that Gary previously owned. So they have this thing on the website called the Book Games Exchange, and they've pegged the value of each book game to 0.1 ETH. So should the collection ever fall below that, your book game tokens are actually exchangeable for more value. So I'm not sure we'll ever see the tokens fall below 0.1 because they've sort of like pegged a floor price, which is really nice for people who are getting into NFTs. It's like a safety net. Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why book games is a good entry, even though it's very confusing at this point, because it shouldn't be confusing forever. You know, surprising, yes. Confusing, hopefully not.
Right.
Awesome. Good information, like really.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Good.
I've absorbed a lot, and I think a lot of people that are listening are going to
so
be
much.
like, whoa, but it's good information. And yeah, where like if people are new and they want to, you know, look you up.
They should search Jeremy Knows. That's my handle now. Jeremy
Okay.
Knows.
Okay.
And I don't know, but I know.
Okay. Perfect.
I in fact, I know there's so much I don't know, and that gives me the confidence to say I know.
Awesome.
And so on Twitter, I'm Jeremy Knows VF for VeeFriends, and my podcast is Jeremy Knows. And my podcast is entirely VeeFriends right now, and maybe someday it'll change, or maybe someday VeeFriends will hire me and I'll do this for a living. Yeah, we'll see.
Awesome. Yes. Right now, we'll have to wrap it up. I would love to keep this conversation, but my boy, I got to clock in, you know. But Jeremy, I want to say
Dude, thank you.
Thank you very much for stopping by. This was an amazing podcast. Casey made it happen once
Sunday
again.
morning, 8 a.m.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. And we look forward to VCon and doing a lot more content. So
For sure. We'll see you there.
Yes. Thank you guys. We are out.
Thank you.
Peace.